The initial domestic price is governed by domestic supply and demand conditions. So the equilibrium price is PD, and at that price QD is sold on the market. If the world price was PW, however, then domestic producers would only be willing to supply Q1. Domestic buyers would be willing to buy Q2, and so at the lower world price, imports would be Q1, Q2. If the government decided to protect local producers with a tariff, this would be like adding a tax to import prices, raising them to PT. This would give incentive to domestic producers to produce more, Q3, and domestic buyers would buy less at the higher price, Q4. In other words, the tariff has increased prices and cut imports. Let's use the producer and consumer surplus concepts to analyse the tariff. Firstly, before the tariff, consumer surplus was the large red triangle. After the tariff, however, consumers have to pay more for imported goods, so their consumer surplus triangle is reduced, and this time drawn as a thicker boundary around a smaller triangle. If the world price prevailed in the market, then producer surplus would be this small green triangle. However, the increase in price caused by the tariff gives producers a greater producer surplus, shown by the thicker green triangle. Producer surplus rises. The interesting task is to find the net result. The green shading shows the increase in producer surplus. The red shading shows that consumer surplus has fallen. Obviously, consumer surplus has fallen by a larger amount than producer surplus increased, meaning the tariff has brought about a net loss for consumers. A topical question would be something like, could a tariff have saved the Australian car industry? And the answer is that whilst producer surplus would have risen, consumer surplus would have fallen by a larger amount. A tariff would have helped the industry, but it would have resulted in a net loss for Australian consumers of cars.